Hi all, welcome to the channel Cloud Knowledge. Today in this video we'll study about copying data from REST API to Azure SQL Database. Okay, so let me first show you here in the whiteboard that our source and target would be here. The target is Azure SQL DB, where in a table, let's say T1, we will land the data and the source will be REST API. There'll be an API, there'll be an URL, and from the URL we'll have, let's say, users data present, user 1, 2, 3 and so on, and the relevant details, let's say ID, name, something. Okay, these details we want to copy into the database, okay, in the form of a table. So ID column should come from this REST API, then the name, then other details, okay, which is present in the form of document valid JSON here at the REST API URL. So these all information we want to copy to the database. So how we will accomplish this in ADF, Data Factory? This is what we are going to learn in this video. So let's go to the Data Factory. Here we are in the Data Factory. We'll create a new pipeline. Let's name this pipeline as copy REST API data to SQL DB. Okay, here then next is we'll take the activity in the canvas. The activity for this purpose of copying the data from the REST API to the database would be copy data activity. So it comes under the move and transform section with the name as copy data. So we'll take the copy data in the canvas. Okay. Now in the copy data activity, we'll leave the general tab as is. Okay. We won't do any change here. We'll go directly to the source tab. And now we have to connect to the source dataset. In our case, the source dataset is this REST API URL, right? And in ADF, in order to connect to the REST API URL, we have the link service known as REST API. But before going to create link service, we'll go first to the REST API URL. So here, if we go in the first tab of the browser, I have this users related REST API URL. Okay, this is the URL. Okay, you can see at the top, and from this URL we can see that it has the users data present. Okay, ID, name, username, email, address, phone, etc. These details, ID 1, 2 till 10. Okay, we want this data to be loaded into Azure SQL DB through Azure Data Factory. So we'll go back to the Data Factory and connect to the source dataset. But before connecting to the source dataset, we have to create the link service. Okay. So here in the source dataset, we'll click on plus new, and in the new dataset, we'll search for REST, for the REST API. We'll click on REST and then click on continue. We'll name it as users API, and next comes the setting of link service. We'll click on it, and since the link service is not there for this REST API, we'll click on plus new here, the first option present under the drop down of the link service. We'll click on plus new. Upon clicking, it will open up the configuration setting of the new link service. So we'll write this REST service for users data, description, connection, integration runtime, and the base URL it is asking now. So the base URL will be this URL. So copy the URL and paste it here. Authentication will give it as anonymous. Okay. Then rest of the settings as is. We'll click on now on the lower right side, test connection. So the connection is successful. We'll click on create. Okay. So this REST service user data will be created. So the REST service users data link service is selected here for the source dataset. We'll click on OK. Right. Once the source dataset is selected, other options also appear in the source of the copy data activity. But we need not change any of these options. We'll leave it as is. Okay. Now, next is we'll go to the sync. We'll go to the sync and connect to the sync dataset. For the sync dataset, we have to connect to the SQL database, right? For the SQL database, we already have the link service in place. So we'll make use of that link service. So let's search for SQL database, and it is Azure SQL Database. We'll select that, click on continue. We'll write it as Azure SQL REST API destination. The link service is Azure SQL Database CK SQL DB. We want to land it into CK SQL DB, and the table name we have to give. Okay, so we'll select none and we'll click OK. Now here at the sync level, we have to do some settings, like we have the table option. So here we have auto create table. It automatically creates the table if non-existent. So we'll click on auto create table. Okay, and we can use this pre-copy script if needed. Okay, for now we'll leave it as is. Now we'll go to the sync dataset and try to open this dataset. Okay, if we try to open this, we can see that the table is not selected. Okay, it is not even none. So if we go to this pipeline, if we click on validate, it will show us error that the table is required in the copy activity. That's why we have opened the dataset, and here we will click on edit and give the name of the table. So we want to land the table inside the DBO schema into the table which is named as target REST API users data. Okay, target REST API users data is the table name. We'll go back to the pipeline and we'll try to validate. Now it's validated. Okay, so the source and the sync setting is done. Now the most important setting is the mappings tab. Okay, in the mappings tab, we will try to import the schemas as well as enable the advanced editor option. Okay, so if we click on import schemas, it has now shown. Upon importing schema, it will show us the incoming schema and the output schema. Okay, it is showing us, right? And if we click on advanced editor, it will show us the hierarchy: ID, name, username, email, address. Address has street, address has suit, address city, address zip code. The hierarchy also is showing here. Okay, so we can here manually do the mapping too. Okay, so for example, address street is there. So here we can write address underscore street. Then here we'll write address underscore suite, address underscore city, address underscore zip code. Okay, other settings are also there for the latitude. So address, let's add here to address, longitude, latitude. Then phone, website, no hierarchy. Then company has 3. Company name, catchphrase and BS. We'll leave it as is. Okay, let's not change it. So we have given the destination names as per our requirement. Okay, this is done. So whenever we are going to copy a document from the REST API, so whenever we are going to copy the data, we have to do the mapping here. And we have the visibility of this advanced editor and import schema option, which will enable us to do proper mapping. Okay, let's now validate this pipeline and try to perform a debug run. Let's click on debug. And here we could see that the copy data activity is queued. We'll click on refresh. It's in progress. In the meantime, we'll publish the changes, publish all the changes. Publishing is in progress. And the debug run is also executing. So the debug run completed or succeeded, right? We can see here the input. Okay, whatever was the input and the output. Okay, the data read and the data copied. So let's see if the data is properly copied or not into the target. So the target was, let's open this. The name was target REST API users data. Let's copy this name. Go to the SQL database, CK SQL DB. Here we have, we'll refresh and here we'll write the query select star from The table was inside DBO. Okay. DBO schema will click on run, and here we could see the data: ID, name, username, email, address underscore street, the column name which we renamed, address suite, address city, zip code, lat, long, phone, website, company name, catchphrase, and BS. All data has been copied to the SQL database table using copy data activity of Azure Data Factory. So this was a very simple example on how we can copy the data to the SQL database from the REST API URL. I hope you've understood the video. Do let me know in comments if you have any queries. Thank you for watching the video. Happy learning. Bye.